Let's try the stretching. First of all, up and down. And then up and out. So have the hands facing down to start with. And now just feel the head, the neck, the shoulders relaxing down into the hands, and also feel the danchen like a fountain sort of coming up and coming down the arms similarly. So just feel the flow from this point here, down into the hands, from this point here, up into the hands. So you have to be constantly stretching the hands away from each other, away from their shoulders. And now turn the palms to face up and turn the head. Feel the energy following the eyes. So as you look down into a hand, the energy flows down that arm into the hand, and then it goes into the other hand as you turn the head. And clasping the hands behind the back, straightening the arms, and rotating the head. And changing direction. Then let it wind down. And then clasping the elbows behind the back. And now the leaning forwards. First down the middle. And squeeze to come back up. And turning to the left knee. And up. And the right knee. And up. And then repeating them. So down the middle. Left knee. And right knee. And up. Okay, now let's try the reaching one hand at a time. So intending the hand up. And reaching forwards. We want to feel the physical aspect of the intending mind. A bit like we're squeezing a bottle, like a washing up liquid bottle, in order to get a jet of fluid, liquid coming out the nozzle. It's the same inside, so this area sort of tightens, squeezes to get this ooze of intending mind coming out of the hand and forwards. And now let's try some to the sides. And then a strong twist, hand on the opposite knee, and breathing yourself round. And the other side. And the other side again. And the other side. And back to the front. Now let's just do a little bit with the stick. So first, pressing it gently into the spine. You should feel the upper chest opening more than usual. So most people's heart is deflated. But this should get it to expand, like the collarbones are pulling apart and it's stretching. Remember, John had those two terms, disheartenment and enheartenment. Now bringing it up to behind the neck. And let's try a few twisting. And let the stick drop so it's in the crook of the elbows. And turning again. and then back up to the neck. And now just a few tipping. So once you get into it, just turn the head to look up the stick to the top hand. And now just extending the stick above, and the same exercise, just be careful. It puts a lot more stress on the back when you're longer. Good. And now bringing the stick forwards and then slowly up. All the time, the intending mind, this movement is happening because muscles inside me are squeezing the bottle. And then pulling and pushing the stick. The hands pulling apart. and pushing together. And pulling again. And pushing. Right. Okay, so let's put the stick down. And now just some breathing. Breathing out and breathing in. Breathing out and then really pulling the belly right in to get all of the air out. Then relaxing the belly, air will come in. And then strengthening the lower back to expand the chest to bring air into the maximum. And then relaxing that. So combining the belly and the chest breathing, pulling right in, relax. Really expand the chest to breathe as much air into the upper lung, and then relax that. Good. And now let's try just like little figures of eights into the lower dantian. It's really opening one hand and forming a fist with the other one. So we want to, if you were doing the half, then the shoulder, a lot of movement in the shoulders. You want to feel there's a lot of movement here. I'm sort of rocking on the cushion a little bit. Like I'm trying to make a figure of eight in my belly, inside. And then bring it up to the heart. And then into prayer and arms up and out. One hand turning over, turning the head. So getting into the figures of eights from here. And then bringing the hands towards each other. And now the figures of eight just feel a bit stronger. Good. And now let's rub the hands. And then first placing the hands over the sacroiliacs. and smile into the region. Just rub the hands again. And the hands on the back of the head. Again, a little bit of action, like you're trying to make the skull malleable. And then just bring the hands around and just put your fingers in your ears, like you're trying to, not pushing, just position them. And then just imagine the line between the fingertips. So that pretty much goes through the atlas bones, the very, very top of the spine, where it comes into the skull. So we want to just be aware of that. That's where the skull is balanced. And we want a feeling of balance and poise with the head. So I think it's Chen Jin's book, he says, empty strength in the neck. So it's an interesting concept, empty strength. It's like it's hollow, like there's nothing there, but it's actually holding itself up. It's lengthening upwards and the head is not falling forwards. Okay, and now let's just rub the hands again and do the eyes. And then the eyes. And then the hands up and out. And start snaking the hands And let the eyes just twist to look at the hand that's coming towards you. The head is still, but the eyes are moving. Then the hands up again. Down to prayer. And up and out again. And now the eyes stay still. Head and eyes stay still, but you still snake. And just become aware of the movement in your peripheral vision. And the hands up again. And just pausing at the head point. And then down to the heart. Then down to the belly. And then into our meditation mudra. And now tracing the peripheral vision. So we really want to feel the difference between the central vision, which we sort of look with, and the peripheral vision, which we feel with. So I can sort of lock my central vision onto something, and then I almost forget it, and I can then concentrate on the peripheral. So just getting the hands to trace the edge of your peripheral vision. And just feel it coming, it comes down into that head point. So the inside peripheral vision curls inwards into the head point and then down. And then again. And one more. And now let's try a couple for the pulling the thread on the top of the head up. We get the hand out. And then just down to the top of the head. But it's as though your fingers are dipping into your skull. And then you just pull out this sinew of energy. And a couple more. Good. Okay, so let's try stretching the legs. And then when you feel like it, into the butterfly. Then let's just come into the squat. Okay, let's start with this one just to loosen the hips. Then same thing, but feet a little bit wider. So my spine is trying to stay still in the middle, but my tail is trying to point towards the heel that's going down. And a little bit wider still. Let's just bring it into riding horse. And now just rolling the pelvis. So I tip my hips forwards to get my tail pointing back behind me. And then I roll my pelvis the other way to get my tail pointing between my legs. So imagine like a rod through your hips. And it's just, so the sacrum is just rolling back, down, and then forwards. So it's effectively the arching back by tightening the lower back and the pulling forwards by tightening the belly, but I'm trying to get it coming from my part of my spine beneath my Ming Men rather than the part of my spine above it. And now just into riding horse proper, feeling this opening here. And then just getting the sacrum to come forward a little bit. That will just force you to open up to the bigger picture rather than focus too much on yourself. And then coming off the heels. And just let the spine change shape so the tail sticks out behind you a little bit and the thymus tries to rear upwards. So it's a difficulty with the working, concentrating, worrying about what you're doing in your own posture. We tend to be enclosed in a bit of a bubble. And we want to be able to just let our energy free, especially at the end of a posture in Tai Chi. So as you sink into your posture at the end and the lower back drops down, it should really free this up. And it's like breaking out of the bubble. It's a completely different mind, the mind that looks into the distance than the mind that considers the self. And then rocking back onto the heels. One heel goes down, I feel it sucking into the ground. The other heel goes down. And now let's try the two circles. It's coming into the heel of the side that's the weight's coming into. And that will enable the other heel to lift a little bit. That's the stimulus to get it to start pulling the weight into it. So there's a famous 12th century Jewish philosopher, Maimonides, he's called. Here they call him the Rambam. So a lot of the words here are sort of acronyms. The Rambam is just Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. That was his name. He's one of the most educated men alive at his time. And he talks about being kind to animals. And he says it's very important to be kind to animals because every living creature has feelings. And then he says, and an imagination. So we're just trying to get really to that place where feelings, the imagination, and energy are all the same thing. So you're feeling this. That's what gives it the richness and the depth, the internalness. Doing this with John, the tears would literally be in his eyes almost immediately. The famous, I can't remember what his name is now. He's a Dutch primatologist. He studies apes, chimpanzees, and gorillas. And he says, in his experience, the highest quality is that of empathy, being able to feel what the other is feeling, not just sympathize that they're suffering, but to feel it, to take it on board. And then just into riding horse again. And again, just letting this swing forward. So it only comes forward like a centimetre, if that. But it's like it sort of slots into position, and then everything is different. You're just in the world differently, vigilantly rather than selfishly. And then coming off the heels again. So when we break the root, it's like the tail becomes free. Because when we're rooted, the tail is sort of drawn down into that root. Whereas when we lift the heels and break the root, then the tail is just given this freedom. It can sort of wiggle around, and especially behind me. And that's necessary if I want to similarly release the thymus or the spirit from the front. So if the bottom of my spine is locked up, then the upper part can't really throw its energy out. It can open up, but we want this feeling that we're projected to the stars or to the horizon. And then rocking back again into the heels. So the other one down first. Ooh. And then this one. And now let's try the circuits. So the down the middle one first. And using the muscles in the lower back to bring the arms up. And now just imagine that there's no gravity. So you have to use muscles to pull the hands down as well. So that's the belly. So it's all work. I'm just alternating back and belly. And now, same thing, but alternating them. It's just a two circle exercise, but on the vertical plane. So try and get the head and the tail pointing in the same direction. So the spine is really bending in the middle. And then just let it become the figures of eights, which is wanting to do anyway, because we're so familiar with these. So every circle becomes a figure of eight. And then just back into riding horse. So very much a sense that we're inside, beaming out, rather than outside, inspecting ourselves. And now let's try the circuit the other way. It's coming up the body and out of the head and down. And this is like the tree, sucking the water up from the ground to feed yourself. Okay, and then back into riding horse. And then just coming off the heels. And now I'm not just beaming out, I'm screaming out. And then back. Heel down, heel down. And now let's try a bit of the breathing. Expanding, contracting. And then bring in a turn in. So as you contract, so like that guy in the video with that toy, that ball, expanding as you come to the front, contracting as you turn to the side. So very much yielding. You're opening to the person and then sucking them in and containing them. And now just moving from leg to leg. You know how they are in the Chen style, they're just really low with these really wide stances. So the heel digging into the ground, the other heel coming up. That's my motor. straighten the leg, and then pull the knee up, and that'll lift the heel as well. So now let's bring the feet up a bit and do the first warm-up exercise. Again, we want it coming from the ground rather than simply from the hips. So I've got this same action going in the feet. One leg straightening and then bending, the other leg straightening and then bending. Then feel the centrifugal and the centripetal, especially the centripetal. This feeling of everything gathering into the Dan Chen region. To give you some stability and centrality so that you can scatter your seeds with the upper body. And if you want to feel it more strongly, just speed up. We always want this feeling that the two phases, the A and the B, are overlapping a little bit rather than there's a stop and start. So I'm turning this way, body's being flung around, but my legs are already pulling me back the other way. So this is that elastic quality. So at the trampoline, you sink into the trampoline skin. It's already pushing you back. From the moment you touch it, it's pushing you back. It's just that the pushback gets stronger and stronger the deeper you go into the skin. So I turn here, but it's already pulling back. And then eventually there's a feeling that the whole thing is overlap. There's no pure one anymore. So very yin and yang. Feel this region here, lower back belly, really becoming sort of tight, but in a juicy way. It's not stiff. The muscles are sort of wriggling and working against each other. And now the figures of eights surround the feet or the hips, like the two circle exercise, but this continuous ribbon. So I've got one mind with the weight that's plodding along this path, but another part of my mind, my sort of spirited mind, that's actually leading. So as I'm going around this foot with my weight, it's as though the spirit is already trying to reach for this foot. So there's part of you that's always ahead, your spirit. So my weight is coming into this foot, but this is really where the spirit and the activity is. Now let's try the same thing, but with one foot forwards, so from bow and arrow posture. Same thing, just going backwards and forwards, but with this sense of a figure of eight looping around each foot. It's like the mind that goes out, it's not really an aggressive mind. It's not going out in order to strike something. It's like a lasso. It's going out to ensnare something and bring it in. So here I send my mind around the foot. And then as I sink into it, I send my mind around the other foot. So I have the hand now with the spirit. So as my weight comes into the foot, the spirit is reaching around the other foot. And then effectively it just becomes this exercise that we all love. But with this visualization of the loop around each foot. And we want it to be energy. So it's not, I'm not just seeing something, I'm intending something. So this sense of squeezing the washing up liquid bottle to get the continuous. So as I sink into this foot, my mind is squeezing a loop around this foot, and that brings me in. So the mind has to get almost fierce to actually get the job done. Again, it's a mind that's very much of the body and nothing to do with the rational mind or the logical mind, which is very much locked up in the head. It's a mind that is intending energy. They're both, whether it's the spirit mind that I'm intending or my weight, they're both making figures of eights, but they're sort of almost 180 degrees out of phase. when you go really quick, then they sort of come in phase. This is why we have to go slowly so we can actually see what's happening. Okay, now let's just do a little bit of this one. It's the same thing, even though your hands are no longer tracing the figures of eight, you still feel them in your legs. So as I sink into this leg, this tentacle of energy loops down under the foot and then up into the groin, as though my hip bone is coming away from the sacrum. So the hips need to be really active and mobile. And for that, the sacroiliacs need to be a little bit free. Okay, let's try a bit with the other foot forwards. Now, first of all, just going backwards and forwards with the figure of eight of the weight, going round this foot and around this foot. And then just as you sink into the back foot, just feel the spirit reaching around the front foot. And then as you sink into the front foot, similarly with the back foot. And then just let it relax into this. Remember, the leg's still the same. As I sink into this leg, it allows the energy to reach around the other foot. And it's that that starts me moving into it. So the weight in one foot, the energy in the other. Okay. And now let's just try a bit of this again. Now let's try just this loosening of the hip. So rolling the knee. My weight's in the other foot predominantly. Just rolling. Sort of get it, it's sort of there's something happening in the hips. And then I just put the heel down and let myself get sucked into the leg. And then I just bring this foot up. And then I step out with this foot and rotate this knee. And then the heel down, and I'm sucked across. Heel down. Heel down. Heel down. Ooh. And the same thing, but now leaning with the back as well. So as you put the foot down, bring the weight into the foot round the outside edge and just lean over to bring this foot up. That's it. So one side of the body really sinking, the other side lifting. But also the same thing in the leg. My outside of my leg is sinking, but the inside is sucking up from the ground. And then this one circling. Ooh. And I get sucked across. And just let yourself lean. So it's almost like the leg comes up because of the leaning of the back. The leaning of the back sinks me into the leg and lifts the other leg. And then this one again. 1, 2, 3, and down. And then without the rolling of the hip, now just inclining. And now just lifting the knee, but keeping the spine sort of vertical. Just to stretch into the hip and also pull at the lower back a bit. And then pulling the foot up behind. Pulling the heel into the buttock, but also stretching the knee downwards. And the other one, round the foot. Good. Okay, that's finished. So just bring it into riding horse. So opening here. And then just feel it. So when we're getting ourselves into position, it's very much like we're scanning our own body from outside. And then just get this to slot forwards a little bit. And now you're inside, gazing out at the world. So very, very different. So we start off, just sort of making sure everything's right. But then there needs to be that switch. And it is like everything's reversing. Suddenly you're inside looking out. And then bring the feet up. And legs still bent, but that they appear straight. And always this, like we're doing this all the time, but invisibly inside. Yeah, so if you try and do something like symmetrical like this, then it's actually quite difficult because they're always wanting to be a little bit out of phase. So when we bring the hands up, it's like I'm sort of wriggling into it. So let's finish. Let's just find a way of bringing it all to a close. Don't let the legs straighten. You've got this quite strong elastic that's pulling you down all the time. And again, that's just a quality of mind because you can quite easily snap that. It's not something that's in the body. I mean, the body is having to fight it in a way.